A young lady was unable to pay her passage back to France on a cruise ship from New York. Well, she was pretty upset until a young sailor came up to her and said, my ship is sailing tonight. I can smuggle you aboard and hide you down below. I'll give you a mattress and blankets and food, and maybe we can get to know each other a little better. Well, the girl said yes, and late that night the sailor snuck her on board the ship. Twice a day he brought her a large tray of food. They had great conversation and even a couple smooches. Well, the days turned into weeks, then the weeks turned into months. Finally, the captain noticed the sailor carrying food down below one night and followed him. Well, after seeing their little barter, he waited until the sailor had left, and he went up and confronted the girl. He wanted an explanation. Well, she told him the whole story. Captain says, well, that's quite a clever arrangement, and I gotta say I admire that young sailor's ingenuity. However, ma'am, I do have to tell you that this is the Staten Island Ferry, hun. There was a huge college freshman. He decided to try out for the football team. Well, after looking him up and down, the coach says, well, son, can you tackle? Watch this, says the guy. And he runs smack into a telephone pole and shatters it into splinters. Wow, said the coach, I'm pretty impressed. Well, can you run? Well, of course I can run, says the freshman. Well, he takes off like a shot, and just over 9 seconds he finishes a 100-yard dash. Amazing, says the coach. Could you pass the football? Well, the freshman thinks about it for a few seconds and says, well, sir, if I could swallow it, I could probably pass it. A dog walks into a butcher shop with a purse in its mouth and sits right in front of the meat case. What is it, boy? Says the butcher. You want to buy some meat? Woof, barks the dog. Well, what kind? You want some burger? You want some bacon? You want some steak? Woof, says the dog. All right, steak it is. Well, how much? You want a half a pound? A full pound? Woof, barks the dog. Well, the amazed butcher wraps up the meat and finds the money in the dog's purse, and as the dog leaves, the butcher says, I'm going to follow this thing. I got to see what's happening. So the dog enters an apartment building and climbs all the way to the 3rd floor, scratches on the door, and with that the door opens and an angry man starts yelling at the dog. Stop, says the butcher. What are you doing? It's the most clever dog I've ever seen. Clever, says the guy. This dog's an idiot. This is the 3rd time this week he's forgotten his keys. An old lady bought herself a parrot to brighten up the lonely hours. The parrot's name was Jim, and it was a charming bird, but had one fault. Whenever she had company over, Jim would let loose with all kinds of profanity. Well, the lady discussed the problem with her pastor, and after witnessing the particularly bad display, he said, this parrot needs some company. Let's get him interested in another of his species. I have a parrot myself. Her name is Sarah, and she's a pretty good bird. She prays constantly. Why don't you let me bring her with next time, and we'll get them together for a few days. I'm pretty sure that they'll have a good time and a good influence on each other. Well, the next time the pastor came over, he brought the parrot, and the 2 birds were placed in a single cage. They spent the first couple of minutes hopping around, sizing each other up. Then Jim turned to her and says, what do you say, you and I shack up, baby? Well, Sarah looked at him and says, oh, hell yeah. What do you think I've been praying for? There was a 5th grade school teacher who took her 5th grade class to the field trip at the county fair. There was a racetrack on the grounds of the fair, and she asked all the kids whether they wanted to go see the horses. Well, all the kids enthusiastically said that they would, but as soon as they got inside the gate, all of them had to go to the bathroom, of course. So she accompanied the girls and sent the boys into the men's room alone. All of a sudden, the boys came walking out immediately. They said that they couldn't reach the urinals. They were too tall. It was a little awkward situation, but she decided she was going to make the best of it and get it figured out. So she walked in with the boys and lined them up in front of the urinals. She walked one by one behind each one, lifting them up, letting them do their business, and then putting them back down. Finally, she came down to the end and lifted one up and was unusually heavy. "My goodness," she said. "Are you sure you're in the fifth?" "No, lady. Come on. I'm in the eighth. I'm riding Flying Spirit." Three real idiots decide they want to go hunting, so they pack up all their gear, hop in a truck, and head out to the woods. Well, the first one says he's gonna get a buck. Well, he goes out, and indeed, he comes back with a buck. The other two hunters asked how he did it, and he said, "Well, I see the tracks, I follow the tracks, and get a buck." So the second guy says he's gonna go out and get himself a doe. And he does. Well, they ask him how he did it. He says, "Well, I see tracks, I follow the tracks, and I get a doe." So the third hunter says, "You know what? I'm just going to go get anything I see." So he goes out and he comes back about a half a day later. He's all bruised up and totally exhausted. Well, the other two hunters asked him what happened. He said, "Well, I see tracks, I follow tracks, and get hit by a train." There was a guy who stopped at a gas station out in the middle of nowhere, and after filling up his tank, he paid the bill and got himself something to drink. Well, he sat on the back of his truck and watched a couple of men working along the roadside. One of the men would dig a hole 2 or 3 feet deep and then move on. The other guy, he came along behind and filled in the hole. While one was digging a hole, the other one was 25 feet behind him, just filling it in. Well, the men worked right past the guy and went down the road. "Well, I can't stand this," said the guy. So he walked down the road towards the men. Hold it," he said to the guys. "Can you guys tell me what is going on with the digging?" "Well, we work for the county government, sir." "Well, one of you's digging a hole, the other one's filling it in. You guys aren't getting anything done. Aren't you just wasting the county's money?" "Oh, no, you don't understand, mister," one of the guys said. He was leaning on his shovel and wiping his face. "Normally there's three of us, me, Rodney, and Mike. I dig the hole, Rodney sticks in the tree, and Mike puts the dirt back." "Yeah," said Mike. "Now just 'cause Rodney's sick, that don't mean we can't work, does it?" Hey folks, it's your old buddy Eddie here. If you could do me a favor and leave a comment which one of these jokes was your favorite. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.